Hello and welcome to Walking Talking Mocks with Bude Haven Science. This video is going to look at how to answer questions on development of the atomic model. We will cover the subject knowledge you should have in order to answer this question, such as the researchers involved, their experiments and their findings. You will also be given the opportunity to answer a 4-mark question followed by an example answer from me. To answer this question, all you will need is paper, a pen and something to time yourself with. This question is about the history of the atomic model. The plum pudding model was the atom replaced by the nuclear model. The nuclear model was developed after the alpha scattering experiment. Compare the plum pudding model with the nuclear model of the atom. In order to answer this question, an understanding about the structure of the atom and the properties of its components is useful. Here is a diagram of Chadwick's model of the atom. This is the model you will have used in your lessons. It shows the nucleus at the centre, surrounded by electrons in different energy levels. These are often referred to as energy shells. The nucleus is home to the protons. These have a relative mass of 1 and a positive charge. It is also home to the neutrons. These also have a relative mass of 1 but have a neutral charge, so no charge at all. Surrounding the nucleus are the electrons. These have a negative charge and a relative mass of 1 over 2,000. This means they have a 2,000 times smaller mass than a proton or a neutron. Electrons are found in a 2-8-8-2 configuration, up to the element of 20, which is calcium. These are in equal numbers of protons and electrons. For this reason, atoms are neutral. Although we now have a fairly good understanding of atoms, this was not always the case. Ancient Greeks had ideas about atoms, but it wasn't until Dalton's research that there was any evidence for what atoms were like. He found that atoms were indivisible balls that all had different masses. He also thought that during reactions, the atoms combined with other atoms. Electrons were discovered by J.J. Thomson. His experiments using beams of particles found that the beams were attracted to a positive charge. This showed that the beams were negative. Thomson called these negative charges electrons. Because he knew that the atoms had no charge, he deduced that the electrons could be embedded in a cloud of positive charge. This model was called the plum pudding model due to its appearance. The next breakthrough came from Geiger and Marsden's gold foil experiment. Positively charged particles were fired at a very thin sheet of gold foil. They expected the particles to pass straight through the positive cloud of the plum pudding model. Instead, they found a scattering effect, where some of the positive charge were repelled back towards them. This led them to believe that electrons were orbiting a nucleus of dense positive charge. Their findings were used to suggest a new atomic model called the nuclear model. This shows dense positive charge in the middle, called a nucleus, with the electrons orbiting around the outside of the nucleus. Later, Bohr found evidence for the electrons orbiting at set distances from the nucleus. He found that specific amounts of light were given off when atoms were heated. The conclusion was that these energy shells were set distances away and the light being emitted was electrons falling from one energy level to the next. Finally, after much speculation about the missing mass in the nucleus, Chadwick did an experiment to support the existence of the neutron, another subatomic particle with the same mass as a proton. Over to you. Now is your chance to answer this 4-mark question. You will need to time yourself for 4 minutes to ensure you're working at exam pace. I will read the question, then pause the video, and an example answer will follow from me. The plum pudding model of the atom was replaced by the nuclear model. The nuclear model was developed after the alpha scattering experiment. Compare the plum pudding model with the nuclear model of the atom. The command word compare requires you to identify similarities and/or differences between the two models. Pause the video now. Upon reading this question, the first thing I think is it might be helpful to draw a quick picture of each model. This will help to compare where the different subatomic particles were believed to be. Here is my answer. The plum pudding model had positive charge spread throughout, whereas the nuclear model had positive charge in the centre of the atom. Both show negative electrons and positive charges, but the plum pudding model shows electrons spread throughout, whereas the nuclear model shows electrons orbiting the outside. To play it safe, I've included both similarities and differences within my comparison. Here are other materials that you could use to answer this question. I've included similarities in the top and differences at the bottom. If you're still struggling with this topic, you should see your teacher or come to one of our Wednesday revision sessions.